Welcome to Real Talk, Family Law with Richard Lebovitz.
Hey everybody, welcome to an all-new episode of Real Talk, Family Law with Richard Lebovitz. I'm your host, Mike Leon. You know, Rich is a seasoned Maryland family law attorney. He's got decades of experience helping clients through divorce, custody, and other complex family matters, and he's known for his clear and honest guidance, committed to helping clients move forward with confidence. And in today's episode, we're going to answer a really big question that happens after a divorce. Am I going to be okay? And it's a question I'm sure Rich hears all the time, and it touches everything from finances to parenting to just peace of mind. So, Rich, as we dive into this first episode, it's good to see you. Let's talk a little bit about this because even when the legal process is moving forward for folks, you know, I'm sure many of your clients, they feel like this deep sense of uncertainty. So how do you help your clients move through that anxiety?
Well, thanks, Mike, for having me today. It's a pleasure being here with you and to share thoughts and insights with potential clients moving forward. Honestly, with family law, it's kind of an evolving, practice, and a lot of it just trying to manage expectations and to mostly explain the process and what to expect, throughout the process with clients. So ultimately, it's my job to just sort of walk the client through everything and explain what potential outcomes might be. And hopefully, after you're having a full comprehensive review of their case and getting to know them and working with documents and proof we may have within their case to help manage expectations going forward.
So let's talk a little bit about the finances part of this. Obviously, that's always the big one for a lot of people. What are some of the top, let's say, financial concerns you hear from clients? How do you help the clients create a plan, as you were just discussing before, that they can live with, that's manageable?
Sure. So, as part of the courts and procedurally, we usually need to fill out a long financial statement, like a monthly budget, if you will, and go over what their monthly expenses are. So not yearly expenses, it's yearly divided by 12, but essentially this is your income, these are your bills, and is there any money left over each month? And then usually that's when you're keeping your finances jointly, then you have to start thinking about essentially if you were to separate that out, can you survive by yourself? And then if not, then essentially either what can you change or reduce on your on budget, or that's when we start talking about potential alimony, spousal support, or if it's a custody matter, child support, or how to supplement your finances. And another tool would be to probably bring in a financial advisor or somebody that can not only review the clients, sit down with them and help them fill out that financial statement, but also to understand what their spouse's incomes and assets look like. They have a general understanding of essentially what would it take to make the both parties, to reach a reasonable agreement to allow my potential client then to feel okay when divorce is over.
What about for folks that have retirement accounts or even, have done long-term planning goals with that other spouse or significant other? How do you help them handle this divorce period?
Sure. So in most cases, it's usually the only main assets in most clients who come to me would usually be a house and a retirement account. In retirement, I can use retirement kind of interchangeably with pensions, where there's, obviously a 401k or 403b, like a money market account, or some have like a deferred compensation plan, kind of like your Social Security account that, if when you retire, you would get, say, $3,000 a month or whatever that is. And the understanding then is if it's like Social Security, and then you're married for more than 10 years, the spouse can get a step up in whatever the other spouse's Social Security is. But when you're dealing with pensions or 401ks, it's usually from the date of marriage till the date of divorce. We do a special order called a qualified domestic relations order that essentially gives the spouse half of from that time period. Again, it's all part of a overall negotiation. It depends on what the assets are in the marriage. So if it's just a basic either someone you either refinance or sell the house, or there's a retirement account. If, say, just for argument's sake, or hypothetically, there's $100,000 in that account, and it was all incurred during the marriage, then the one spouse is entitled to say half or $50,000 from that. and then a qualified domestic relations order would be issued, and then $50,000 would essentially be diverted to a separate special account for one party, and then the other party would keep their $50,000, and then we would move forward from that.
So, Richard, we've talked about assets now. Now we're going to get into the big part, which is always the parenting part of this, right? What are some of the biggest fears I'm sure you hear from clients that are parents about custody or even, parenting time, split custody? Give us some of the insights of how you help navigate for folks that.
Sure. So, at least under Maryland law, we are required to file a parenting plan. And there's simple forms that I provide to my clients to review, and I can go over each step with them. Essentially, whether or not we have legal custody or legal decision making, whether for education, where we live, what religion, what school, what hospital, or what doctor we see, and then there's physical custody, the access schedule. So some people, every case being fact specific. Some cases, the parties are living in the same house. They have they are able to great communicators, and they want to just keep a 50-50 or a shared schedule. Other people, usually one spouse has a crazy business work schedule that they only have the ability to see the children, say, on weekends. And other people just may be separated, but just withholding the child from one parent or the other. So it runs the whole gamut. But ultimately, you need to working with different experts or through the court system. We try and work out a plan. Essentially, one, what is your goal? What is a realistic goal for you to for access with the children? And ideally, it's best when you have a partner or the other side is willing to cooperate and work with us to resolve those issues. But again, every case being fact specific. Some parties are so difficult, they just won't give you the time of day. And you have to essentially do more court services to try and get access for the children, whether that means requesting an expedite or emergency custody hearing, asking for what's called a custody evaluation or a home study, where the some professional, essentially, or caseworker or social worker really comes out to the house, interviews different people, and makes recommendations of how custody should be. So there's lots of tools and ways to try and make that work.
I want to get into the second part of what you said about the uncooperative parent in just a second, but let me go back to the parent that you give them the parenting plan. They're a little unsure if this is going to work. How do you reassure that client that this parenting plan not only will work, but it won't, lessen the role that they have in their kids' lives?
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what would either the parties agree on, or if not, having a stranger wearing a black robe, a judge or magistrate here in Maryland, to make a final decision for you. So it's really trying to manage expectations going forward. So one, what's the current status quo? What are you currently doing for access? If you're being denied access, then of course we need to sort of almost start from scratch and try and maybe do baby steps. Like, what would it take for the other party to either do some supervised visitation for a few hours a week, for so many months, and then transition, like a phase one, then a phase two, and phase three, adding more time. I mean, there's many ways to make that work. It just really comes down to how much is, or how willing is the other party going to cooperate with to try and make that happen.
So let's go to the uncooperative parent. How do you help them plan for structure and protection post-divorce? Because I know you mentioned a couple times if they're uncooperative and they won't answer my call, sometimes we're at a stalemate.
So obviously, it really comes down essentially what is their reasoning? Why are they being uncooperative? Is the other party that they have a substance abuse problem or something like that? Where if we talk about other tools, like say there's a system called SoberLink, which is essentially would be like a breathalyzer we've used in certain cases, where if I could say, well, look, if we could do a supervised visitation here in Baltimore County, we have a supervision center where essentially you would have the children would go in the room with like a one-way mirror, and they'd be observed for a few hours, a week. A few hours each, in a day, for maybe once a week, every week or so, and we can maybe start off there, and then have the observer, observe the father or the mother with the the children for a few hours and then write a report, and after a few weeks see how that goes. I'm saying there are ways to try and sort of break the ice and create trust again between the parties. But obviously, that's only if my client who's being maybe difficult or overprotective of the child is going to cooperate with that. But there are many ways and services to say, let's make sure that there's urinalysis or drug screening, and essentially hoops that the other party has to jump through, that with protections in a consent custody order, that we can make sure that the client feels comfortable enough that it's appropriate for the other party to have access.
So, Richard, they say hindsight is 20/20. So in that vein, are there certain things you wish your clients would think about early on in the process that could help them alleviate some of these fears they get later on in the process?
Sure. Ideally, really every case being fact specific. If the parties are able to cooperate with each other or work on their communication skills, if they're willing to possibly see a therapist or talk things through with a therapist to figure out essentially, is the problem with the other parent, or is the problem with just maybe they just are overprotective of the child? So if the more work they can do on themselves, or just possibly, because we can always come up with different schedules, whether it's week on, week off, every other weekend, or a 2-2-3, or just only so many ways we can divide up the week for access. And a lot of it deals with, again, on how far apart the parties live from each other. But the more homework that the parties do ahead of time makes everything so much easier going forward.
It's true. And you know what, Richard, let's land the plane on this. Someone's watching this, they're listening to this, they're afraid of going through this. They're going to lose everything. They're worried that their life is never going to feel stable again. What's a piece of advice you would give to them?
Basically, don't listen. Really, just stop talking or listening to all your friends who are like, hey, let me tell you about my friend's divorce, or this happened to my divorce. To me, those are all urban myths. That's not how this really works. A divorce case from start to finish can be a drawn-out process over a year or more. And the ultimate goal in any of these cases is to reach an agreement. So the idea is to essentially keep an open mind, and let's work together to reach an agreement that is financially sound for you and also in the best interest of the children.
Best interest of the children. We landed there. Richard, thank you so much for the insights today. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Mike, for having me again. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to everybody out there for listening to another episode of Real Talk Family Law with Richard Lebovitz. Divorce can feel overwhelming, folks. I know, I'm a kid of divorce. You don't have to walk through it alone. With the right plan and support, there is life and stability on the other side. Do me a favor, visit LebowitzFamilyLaw.com to schedule a consultation with Richard and the team, and you can get help building a future you can feel good about. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review and comment if you love this episode. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it. As always, I'm Mike Leon. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.